Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today I would like us to discuss something very, very important and slightly different from the things we've been discussing about on the battlefront. Let us discuss about logistics and supply. Tigray is essentially under blockade. The region has not had any access to an international or maritime border for the last 10 months, but TPLF is still fighting. The question is, who is supplying them with their weapons and ammunition? Well, from the information that we've gathered from the ground and those who know, there is a thinking that TPLF was a very insecure group during their days in power, essentially because it is a small party and from a very small ethnic group compared to the other groups in Ethiopia. The top leadership, that is politicians and generals, planned for a situation where they would need to run a second civil war if necessary. And consequently, they hid weapons all over Wollo and parts of South Goda. In fact, there is suspicion that the bulk of the weapons that were hidden by TPLF are somewhere around Mount Guna. And that is the reason why TPLF was trying to dash west immediately after taking control of Waldea. They seem to be recovering some of these weapons, which they secretly buried in parts of Amhara region. It is also suspected that the mines around Gashina hold a lot of weapons which were hidden there by the TPLF. However, the TPLF did not seem to have planned, or basically they could not plan for other necessities such as food and, more importantly, medicines for their injured fighters. The other question one would want to ask is, why would TPLF hide weapons in Amhara region? Well, out of the many ethnic groups in Ethiopia, the Amhara are the closest to Tigrayans in terms of language, culture, religion, and history. TPLF was more concerned with the threat from the Cushitic groups such as the Oromo, the Somali, Sidamas, and others in the southern nations and nationalities and peoples region, as well as the Nilo-Saharan communities in Gabela and Benshangul regions. And for good reason, because TPLF had planned all along that after they take power in Addis Ababa, they would loot resources from these regions and ship them to Mekele. And that is why it is well documented that the TPLF leadership, the politicians, the generals, have had a lot of resources shipped to Mekele and out of the country. And this largesse was basically obtained from the Oromia, Somali region, and now Sidama region, as well as the southern nations, nationalities, and peoples region, and in many parts of Gabela and Benshangul. But the question also begs, so where is TPLF getting oils, lubricants, and spare parts? We do not need second guessing here. The TPLF is using United Nations trucks, and these are in pretty good condition. The relief agencies in Tigray have been known to have provided aid and logistical support to the TPLF before, during, and after the conflict began. Now, it is also suspected that they could also have obtained these things from other sources, and they had planned for the war before they started the conflict, the political conflict, way back in September 2020. For example, it is now well known that Mesfin Engineering Company has over 10,000 tires inside it, in its stores. It's not clear how and why a company that is basically involved in engineering has such a huge stockpile of tires of various sizes and nomenclature. This obviously leads credence to the argument that the TPLF had started planning for an armed conflict long before November last year. And they were doing this with the tacit support of foreign countries and entities disguised as relief agencies. But finally, there perhaps something that a lot of people are not noting, and a lot of people who are reporting and analyzing the fighting in Ethiopia are not noting. TPLF is fighting a very light infantry war. They are not fighting a mechanized war. They are using trucks which they got from UN and other relief agencies to transport fighters and then transport looted goods and minerals back to Mekele. The fighters are left to move from one place to another, basically through hilly terrain on foot after they have arrival at their destination. And this is the reason why now one can surmise and say that TPLF is no longer fighting a conventional war. They are fighting a guerrilla war. They know the terrain around Wallo very well, because that was their line of approach and advance towards Weldia, Desi, Kobolcha in 1990 and 1991 when they took over Ethiopia with the help of other ethnic militia which they had recruited to finally form what was known as the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, that is EPRDF, that took power in Addis Ababa in 1991. So basically, these are some of the things that we've gathered from the ground and some of the things that we can say that are happening, because from the information that we are gathering from the ground, it is obvious that TPLF is in a position to continue fighting. But a lot of questions have been asked. Why are they able to continue fighting even after the blockade and essentially the placing of Tigray region under siege, with the borders in the west of Tigray blocked by the Amhara region special forces? On the east, the TPLF was unable to go to the Djibouti-Ethiopia road. They are not getting any help from their northern neighbors in Eritrea, who are also their relatives in terms of language and culture. But they continue fighting. So this analysis is based on information that we have received from various sources. We are not saying that basically that this is the final position, but this is our analysis based on the information that is in our possession and from the observations of our sources who are on the ground and observing how this war is being conducted. Thank you.